my mindset is if I truly am convinced that we should be focusing on a new idea, I focus on the business outcomes. I tie it to the company's vision and I take baby steps to make it a reality.
Welcome to PBtalks, the podcast by PagBrasil. I'm Marina Scomazzon, and in this episode, we explore the latest trends in payments, technology, and ideas shaping the future of business. Today's topic is all about influences, specifically how to influence from within. Most companies know they need to innovate, but turning good ideas into internal movement, that's a different game. In this episode, we're joined by professionals who've not only pitched bold ideas, but got them implemented. So let's dive right in. Here in our studio, we have Ralf Germer, CEO and co-founder of PagBrasil. Welcome, Ralf.
Thank you, Marina.
We also have Madhu Vasu, Senior Vice President, North America Product at Verifone. Thank you for joining, Madhu.
Thank you, Marina. Pleasure to be here.
And Nicolas Ballare, Director of Strategy and Corporate Development at MODO. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you, Marina, for having me.
So let's go ahead and start with Ralf. When someone brings a new idea forward, Ralf, what do you think really drives decision-making inside a company? And what are those internal levers or dynamics that can make or break a proposal?
Yeah, I think one thing is the decision-making, but I think the execution about innovation is the most important thing. And speaking from our perspective at PagBrasil, for us, innovation is in the DNA of all of the company. In our company culture, it's even one of the values we have defined as essential for our company. And I think the whole organization has to live innovation. And then what I also think is very important is that top management is involved in this innovative process. For sure, it's not possible in huge companies that the CEO or the top management is driver of each innovation. But the innovation itself has to be part of the top management's daily task. The top management has to be involved. And I think this is very important. And for sure, innovation is not like an idea is sufficient and then you just implement and you go from there. There are many ideas and you have to evaluate which ideas really have market potential and can get traction, which ideas are realistic in terms of being possible to implement or to create. And then there's a long process. Innovation is not an idea, implementing it. Innovation is having an idea, working on it, experimenting, speaking with people, travel and speak to potential customers, and then over time to come to a product. And this is a long process. It's not about one decision. It's about lots of decision in this process. And this process has to be supported by top management. I think this is very important.
Thank you. And Madhu, let's bring you on this. So when you're trying to get an idea off the ground internally, who do you see as your key allies? And how do you go about finding and engaging those decision makers?
Yeah, great question, Marina. When I think of allies, it's not about org charts and titles, but more about who are those operators who are closest to the problem. Now, whether it's a product manager, a sales lead, or a customer success rep, someone who could validate my idea is truly filling a gap and solving a problem. Then, of course, you have the cross-functional enablers like finance, compliance, legal, operations. It's absolutely important to bring them in early in the game so they understand what the vision is and what we're trying to achieve and why it's so important. This group becomes your cheerleaders, removing any blockers, and they begin to champion your cause. And of course, most importantly, you have executive sponsorship. To them, it's all about how a new product or a solution ties to their larger corporate strategy. How does it unlock new segments and revenue opportunities is important. So I would categorize three different set of allies with different motivations in bringing innovation to life, and all three are just as important.
Yeah, perfect. And Nicolas, from your point of view, what actually makes an idea click inside a company? Is it about timing, tying to KPIs, or is there something less obvious that makes it more likely to move forward?
I think it's a combination of all of these aspects. I mean, I wanna pick on two concepts that I think that Ralf and Madhu brought to the table. That is, you cannot do innovation within a lab or four walls, but you have to get outside to understand motivations, to understand how this idea with general strategy, to understand what is the specifics of the problems that you're trying to solve. So given that you've done your homework and that you have a strong, thorough case around your idea, I mean, the problem is there. You are capable of delivering a solution that it's better than what's already being done. Validating that this has alignment between with the general company strategy, because we all have more ideas than the time and resources that we actually have to implement them. So picking those right choices in order to understand what to pursue and what to leave behind. And then, given that you've done all this homework on your side and you've validated with different stakeholders and you have buy-in, I think that there are two things that are very important. First of all, is preaching your idea. So going outside and getting feedback from these different stakeholders that Madhu was mentioning, and then picking the right time when to approach an idea. I think that, generally speaking, if the idea is a good idea and it has internal and it's both internally and externally valid, at some point you will get there. But picking the right time and the right moment to present an idea is also important, because again, it's all about trade-offs, and you might have a very good idea or a very good product, but if it's when competing with priorities that might be defined both by external and internal factors, it doesn't end up in that top 5, top 10, top 10 list. You might not be able to get there. So I think it's a combination of this: doing your homework, reaching your ideas to the right stakeholders, and then picking the right time to present it and getting out there.
May I add one point to this? This is very interesting what you said about the point of time, no? Because we are always innovating in the company, and sometimes we are working on so many ideas that we're losing focus. And I said, stop innovating, stop trying new things, and let's focus again. No? And then we focus and we're making these things happen, and then we have to do new things, no? And then we go broader again. And this is it's a process of years, no? But this is always happening. And the right point of time, you are right, in the organization, and for sure also for the market, is very important.
Yeah, if the company and the people are ready for that as well, right? Mm-hmm. For ready to hear that, or ready to discuss that. And thinking about these practical cases, an occasion where you guys had an idea going through, what kind of framing or language really made the difference? How do you speak the business language, let's say, to get people on board? I think we can start with you, Ralf.
Yeah, I think I always like to try. When we innovate, we always say at PagBrasil that we love to solve the impossible problems. No? So there's something, it's impossible to do it, and then it's challenge. That's a nice challenge. That's fun to try it. No? So, when you come up with an idea, an innovation, then usually we don't know yet how to do it. It seems impossible. So we cannot describe how it would work, but we can describe what will the experience which someone will have, because it's all about people. People have a certain experience, and this experience we can describe. And if you do that with enthusiasm, then I would say this is the language to communicate. For sure, there's also other things like data, market potential, and things like that you have to bring to the table. But I think with enthusiasm, describing like making a press release or make an announcement how the product would work and benefit people. I think this is the starting point when you bring something up in your organization.
Yeah, Marina, I'm going to, give an example, a recent example that both you, Marina, and Ralf have been very closely involved. Here at Verifone, when we wanted to launch international picks or picks in the States, we started driving the case for it in terms of the core idea. Now, the core idea was very simple. Brazilians are one of the largest spending tourist groups, and Pix is their default preference and way to pay. But to get the internal buy in, I had to frame this in terms of what the business really cared about. So, some of the aspects that I had taken into consideration is how much of incremental revenue the United States merchants could capture from these Brazilian tourists if they were to offer Pix as a new payment method. And then from the customer side, I had to look at, the 3 or 4% savings that a customer would realize if they were able to pay with Pix compared to using a more traditional payment method like a Brazilian card, which has all the fees that gets added on because it's a cross-border transaction. And the additional benefit there is the ease of use also translates to higher ticket spend for the merchants. And lastly, from a Verifone perspective, there was competitive risk. If we didn't do it, one of our competitors could do it, and they would gain the first mover advantage, and we would lose out on that. So, this framing in terms of the revenue upside, the customer experience lift, and the competitive advantage that we have was, was it basically transformed Picks from a nice to have product idea into an actual business growth opportunity.
Yeah, perfect. And Nico, how about you?
So just to, I think that to answer this question, it's good to give a little bit of context, just a tiny bit about MODO. So MODO, we're a company that basically we serve banks. We are owned and we were created by banks. We served around 32 banks in Argentina. The reason why I'm bringing this in, and we have, like, if you would like, cousins around the world. So I would say like we are similar somehow to Bizum in Spain, or Sell in, or Pays in the US, and so on and so forth. And one of the things that we need to consider whenever we are thinking about launching a new product or innovating is not only, as Ralf was saying, which is this a relevant problem for the end user, and do I have a potential solution that it's better to whatever it is in place right now, but also we need to understand where are our clients. At the end of the day, we don't have users as MODO. We have users, as MODO. We don't have clients. So we basically create new ways in which people can interact with their own money, but we distribute these functionalities through banking apps. So at the end of the day, what we have to think about is how does this particular use case solves a problem that banks may also be interested in pushing. Banks, or we also have other kind of financial institutions linked to the ecosystem. So one of the view is making sure that we have the issuer's side view, and that there is alignment with their with their needs and with their general customer strategy. And also, I believe that there is another component that is regard to the ecosystem layer. So being able to provide solutions to plus 30 banks, it's has its advantages, but also has its disadvantages. So in the advantage side, if you are able to convince the whole ecosystem that this is a functionality that will add value to their final customers, then you have the power of a lot of institutions pushing and distributing this functionality together, educating the end user at the same time. But also you have very different stakeholders on the other side, which are banks or issuers that have different strategies, are in different parts of the digitalization journey. So making sure that we are able to not only understand how this benefits the end user, but how this enhances the value proposition of a very heterogeneous ecosystem, and how we can use that ecosystem to enhance these functionalities. I think that it's key for us in identifying what are the kinds of initiatives that will add the most value at the end of the day. I think that's, at least in MODO, this is one of the key factors for understanding what to bring to the table in terms of innovation.
Yeah, thank you, Nico. And the next question is actually for all of you, but I wanted to start with Madhu, actually, because you mentioned about our joint project, actually, the international PIX. And we were with you along this process. It was super interesting to keep track of it and to be able to help you throughout that all of that. And thinking about this process, what has been the hardest part for pushing this innovation from the inside? How did you navigate or overcome that roadblock? You mentioned a few hints, but if you can explain a little bit more.
Absolutely, Marina. So look, building product is not the hard part here. I think getting organizational buy-in, this is again what Nico and Ralf touched earlier. I think it's human nature to resist any kind of change and try and disrupt status quo. Every time throughout my career, when I've wanted to try something new, I get a few standard questions. Do we really need to do this right now? And then I get a list of what are all the things why this new product or solution is not going to work. And thirdly, this is going to be a distraction to our other core priorities that we've already invested in. And the way I've handled that, Marina, is my mindset is if I truly am convinced that we should be focusing on a new idea, I focus on the business outcomes. I tie it to the company's vision, and I take baby steps to make it a reality. Because when you try and bulldoze an entire product solution in a very aggressive timeline, it overwhelms the teams. So something like, let's start with an MVP, let's start with a pilot. And it all starts with getting that one customer or that one merchant to participate in your pilot to basically ground this idea from concept to reality. And that's how I've approached it, and it's served me well in the past.
Yeah, thank you. And Ralf, how about you?
Yeah, you might think that I'm the CEO of the company, so it's easy. I just can tell everybody what to do, but it's not that easy. But for two reasons. One is that we are co-CEOs. I have a co-founder. We are both CEOs. And I have at least convinced Alex in the first place, or he has to convince me the other way around. And we always have a discussion in between us before we go ahead with some idea. And I think it is in most companies, like out of 100 ideas, maybe 2 advance, and all the rest is discarded at some point after discussion. And then you need the buy-in of your staff, of the whole company. You have to make them understand the idea, buy the idea, and be enthusiastic about it. Because it's difficult to innovate. It's difficult to make the impossible possible. And to get there is the only way is to convince everybody in the organization. And I think this is like the most important thing you have to overcome.
Yeah, and we know very well how difficult it is to convince two co-CEOs. I can tell you that. And Nico, how about you?
Well, I couldn't agree more with both what Ralf and Madhu were saying. I think that we live this on our daily basis at Modo. I like to think, or I tend to think about Modo as a change management industry level exercise, in the sense that we we are, one of our missions as a company is to be a transformation vector for the financial industry, and this translates at the end of the day in um, making sure we pick the right battles, and we are successful in influencing a very an ecosystem made of very different players, to move forward in digitizing the experience that customers have with their money. And so if at PagBrasil you have the challenge of convincing two co-CEOs, here we have the challenge of convincing uh, plus 10 or 15 payment VPs along the industry in deploying new products. So I believe that going trying to make ensuring alignment with strategy, understanding their needs and their restrictions, making sure it is the right timing, and being aware of the trade-offs that both internally and other partners have to deploy, and where are their interests, and how much it is within ourselves, and how much we depend on third parties to move together and push a specific initiatives. I think all these are key things to get into consideration when trying to influence people and getting ideas to move forward.
Yeah. And now, looking beyond your walls for a second, is there a company or team out there that you really admire for how they drive internal innovation? And in your opinion, what do they do differently? If we can start with you, Ralf.
And I think we internally we often look at Apple, and especially Apple of the last 20, 25 years. These big innovations that were driven in these more than 2 decades in that company is like orientating us. And I think the interesting thing what we're looking is not only on the innovation, how they were done, but also the purpose, what was behind the marketing. And you know, I would say we admire Apple for that, and we often look at how things are done at Apple, and then we try to follow their example.
Yeah, the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
This is the one of the interesting videos out there. And how about you, Nico and Madhu?
You know, believe it or not, my iconic company that I've, find truly inspiring is Apple as well. And what inspires me most about Apple is not just their design aesthetic, but the way they make like complex technology feel simple and human. Apple consistently frames innovation through the lens of customer experience. Like if you look at, Apple's advertising, it's never about how many transistors are there on the chip or the processing speed of the chip. It's always about how seamlessly I, as a user, can capture a photo, pay with my phone, or connect to my music. So, that discipline within Apple of keeping the customer at the core, saying no to distractions, I believe is what makes them an iconic brand. And for me, the lesson learned through years of following Apple is that innovation isn't being about first in market or how many features you have. It's about having a very clear vision and the ability to consistently deliver products that resonate with people on an emotional level. And I think that's what sets them apart.
Yeah, perfect. And Nico, how about you?
So I will probably go with maybe what's not a very common case, but it's in finance. And I would say that one of the companies that has catch my eye and my attention within the last years has been the DBS Bank. So this is a leader bank at Singapore. Um, so these guys were used to be a bank that was the 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 archetype of a traditional bank, and their former CEO, which actually has left on March of this year, when he came to office on 2009, he envisioned what would this bank would look like if it was run by Jeff Bezos, or Tim Cook, or one of these big techs CEOs. And he um, he started a digital transformation from the roots of the bank, where everything was defined and everything was possible. So the ultimate aim was to create a digital user-centric bank. And now DBS is one of the leaders in the southeast of Asia in terms of customer of digitalization of payments, of going digital on payments, of blockchain, open banking, and different innovations. There are hot topics right now in the industry, and I think that this all came from this vision of how do I put the customer in the center, and how do I encourage myself and the whole of organization to define what we are doing and try to go on think, or if this company was administrated as a big tech. So it might not be this normal example of innovation, but I think that the transformation that Gupta, who was the CEO at that time, um, uh, put in place and into practice required a lot of courage. If you've ever been part of the banking industry, you would understand that normally status quo and playing safe is rewarded, and sometimes it's easier to do and to be more bold if you come from a neobank or a digital first bank, which you were born with innovation. But doing this in a traditional bank, being successful and being able to be at the top billboard after 10 years, I think that's an inspiring case, and that it's one of the examples that I use to look at whenever I'm trying to take examples or pitch an idea and think on, well, has this been successful? Has the DBS implemented it or not? So I think it's an interesting case that's normally not out there, but of a whole transformation from 0 to 100.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. And Madhu, we often hear that Silicon Valley leads the way in innovation. And in your view, what truly makes it stand out? And do you think that mindset is something other markets or regions can actually replicate?
Fantastic question, Marina. First of all, I am super grateful to be living in Silicon Valley. And I think what sets it apart is it's not just the concentration of capital or talent, it's truly the mindset. In the Valley, failure is something that is celebrated, and it's not a stigma. It's just a data point. You can launch a product, you can miss, you can pivot and fail and still raise your next round of capital. So this creates a culture where people experiment more boldly and ideas move faster from concept to market because the fear of failure is eliminated. And the second part of your question is, can it be replicated? I absolutely do think that mindset can be replicated. If leaders in other markets are able to create environments where experimentation is encouraged, where failure is seen as a learning opportunity, and where collaboration gets rewarded, you can actually recreate an ecosystem anywhere in any part of the world that rewards curiosity and speed over perfection.
Yeah, perfect. And to wrap up, is there a book, a podcast, or even a movie that you would recommend to someone who's trying to sell an idea internally right now? Ralf, how about you?
I was thinking about that, and I think I would recommend the movie or the series on Netflix, which is called The Playlist, which tells the story of Spotify. And because it really covers all the parts, trying to solve, to create a product, defining it, making people buy in, overcoming resistances from investors, from co-founders, and even the team or the market in this case. So it doesn't only tell the nice story or like a book how to follow, how to do it successfully, but it makes you feel and see all the issues, all the problems and the hard challenges you have to overcome. It's, I think, quite realistic of a story of innovating. So it's like, who is in IT, who wants to innovate, should really see that movie.
And you, Madhu?
A book that comes to my mind, Marina, is it's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And it's one of those books that I wish someone had given to me when I was in my 20s. It's essentially the difference between a fixed mindset, where people see ability as static, and a growth mindset, where challenges and failures are seen as opportunities to learn. Now, that's incredibly relevant to what we've been talking during this podcast, and also when you're trying to push a new idea internally. When you're selling something innovative and when you're selling something new, you're often asking people, take a risk on this idea, step into an unknown, or admit that the old way of what you've been doing is not good enough. And if you frame that in a pitch with a growth mindset, talking about the art of the possible, it just makes it easier for people to lean in rather than resist.
Yeah. And you, Nico?
I would probably will have to go. There's this podcast called Masters of Scales with Wade Hoffman that the general topics are focused on startups and founders, leaders that they explain how they pitch their ideas, grew their businesses, and scaled in general. And I think that those are like practical examples of how people actually did this, and what were their experiences, what were their learnings throughout the journey. So I think that I'm more of a theoretical guy in sometimes, but I what I like about this case is that it's concrete experiences on what went right and what went wrong at trying to grow and scale innovative businesses. So I think it's a good option to give it a shot.
Yeah, thank you, the three of you, for the great tips, and thank you for being here. If you're listening and currently trying to pitch a bold idea inside your company, remember, innovation doesn't always need to start from the top. It often succeeds when it starts from within. So thank you, Ralf, thank you, Madhu, and thank you, Nicolas, for being here with us for this insightful conversation. And to hear more conversations like this one, follow us on Spotify, YouTube, and LinkedIn at PagBrasil.
Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Marina, for the moderation. Thank you, Madhu and Nicolas, for participating. It was really, I think, a very excellent podcast here, very good discussion, and it was a lot of fun for me to speak about these topics.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you to Nico, Ralf, and Marina. Fantastic session. Really appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks on my side. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much, and we see you in the next episode of PBtalks.